February 28, 1912. My dear mother, I'm sorry, dear mother, to have to write this letter to you, but God's will be done. Everything is in His hands, mother. Don't grieve, don't cry. It's God's will. God has called, and I had to obey. I'm not going back to Ireland. I'm going as a missionary to China. May God's will be done. God knows my heart is broken, not for myself, but for you, whom I love above all in this world.
The foolishness of God. 100 years of Columban missions. John Fraser, a prophetic Canadian, attracted the first Columbans to China. He spoke to the students in the National Seminary in Maynooth on the evening of the 19th of June 1911. They were distracted, excited about going home for summer vacation next day. Yet his words and pictures left an indelible impression on their minds, especially on John Blowick, Joseph O'Leary, E.J. McCarthy, and James Conway. Michael O'Doherty, Archbishop of Manila, wrote to Michael O'Dwyer in 1928 begging for priests for his diocese. He had 60 parishes without a priest. O'Dwyer expected some opposition from Rome, the Columbans being a missionary society and the Philippines not in the missions. He suggested that O'Doherty should write to propaganda saying that the Columbans were anxious to have a procure, a general business office in Manila, and asking permission for them to take a parish there. Rome gave permission, and in May 1929, Patrick Kelly and Michael Cuddigan arrived in Malate. The General Chapter in 1931 recommended reasonable expansion in the Philippines. In the following years, there were Columban parishes in Binangonan, Lingayen, and Misamis Occidental. Edward J. McCarthy responded to the complaints of parents in Malate about the anti-Catholic teaching of some of the lecturers in the University of the Philippines. It was a government-owned, non-sectarian institution, but he enrolled as a student and began Catholic action. Mariano Madriaga, Bishop of Lingayen, Dagupan, invited Columban sisters to open schools in Lingayen and Malasiki in 1939. 2 years later, they set up another in Misamis in Mindanao. President Ferdinand Marcos used unrest in the Philippines to declare martial law in September of 1972. Government forces arrested opposition politicians, journalists, student activists, and some priests. Many of the leaders of Student Catholic Action joined the Communist Party. Labour leaders and tenants were interrogated and jailed. Seeing no hope for social change by constitutional means, several priests, including Columbans in Negros and Mindanao, joined the underground. Pope Paul VI asked Bishop Bienvenido Tutud in 1975 about Muslim-Christian fighting in Mindanao. Tutud explained that Muslims and Christians were prejudiced against each other. Who, in your opinion, asked the Pope, ought to be the first to offer reconciliation? He suggested that a community of Christians be formed whose sole aim would be reconciliation. He erected the Prelature of Marawi in 1976, and Tutud became its first bishop. Its vision was not to convert Muslims, but to offer a reconciliation presence among Muslims through dialogue of life and faith. The General Chapter of 1976 recognized urgent challenges to incarnate the gospel in cultures which are not our own, to bring about full Christian liberation to the poor and the oppressed, to facilitate dialogue between Christians and non-Christians, and to facilitate exchange between churches. The Central Administration should establish a commission for the Chinese apostolate and new missions should be undertaken as a matter of principle. The region of Korea proposed that we appoint a society, justice and peace officer, and this was approved. There should be a society education officer who would establish an overseas training program. The proposal to provide an opportunity for a period of time in home region apostolates or pastoral work recognized what was already happening. For example, when Owen O'Kane set up a parish in Ballymun, Dublin in 1975. 6 years later, that was called reverse mission. Police in Negros Occidental arrested 3 priests and 6 lay workers in May 1983. 2 of the priests were Columbans, Neil O'Brien and Brian Gore. They were charged with the murder of Mayor Pablo Sola and his companions. Their real crime was helping the poor in the mountain parishes to hold onto their land. The military searched for and tortured witnesses, but the Australian and Irish governments and media brought pressure on Manila. O'Brien's mother used the visit of Ronald Reagan to Ireland to get him to intervene. Letters and cards from around the world poured into the Bacolod jail, and the small Christian communities all over the Philippines watched and prayed. Finally, the government surrendered and had the judge dismiss the case in July 1984. Columban formation changed in the 1980s. Students moved from Dalgan to Maynooth to study in the National Seminary. Those in St. Columbans Theologate in Chicago enrolled in Catholic Theological Union. When Dan Troy was ordained in 1999 and Chris Sains in 2000, these 2 programs came to an end. Providentially, the General Chapter of 1982 decided to invite candidates from the local churches in which we work to become members of our society and share in our missionary enterprise. As a result, a college-level house opened in Cebu in 1984 and a theologate in Quezon City in 1988. Columbans discussed lay mission as early as 1970. 12 years later, a chapter called for action. 3 Filipinas went to Britain and 6 young people from Ireland and Australia to Chile. Grace and Kieran Doyle and their 2-month-old Colum arrived in Jamaica in 1988. In 1990, the Society set up the Columban Lay Mission Program with its own recruitment and orientation methods. 6 Koreans were assigned to the Philippines and 3 Filipinas to Pakistan. Elizabeth and Joe Beliveau went to Taiwan in 1990 and the Mora family from Chile to Mindanao in 1993. The Society moved in 1994 from facilitating lay missionaries to partnership. Since then, lay people have taken on greater responsibility for leadership. In October 2005, there was a shift from lay missionaries being part of a program to calling themselves Columban Lay Missionaries, CLM. From 2006 until now, the 4 central leadership teams elected to work with the General Council have all been lay missionaries. The 2012 General Assembly affirmed that partnership between ordained and lay is the way of being on mission. In the same year, Vida Amor Hakilan, a long-term lay missionary, was appointed as the coordinator of the Taiwan Mission Unit, a first in the Society. From 1990 to 2016, 280 lay missionaries have been sent on mission from the Philippines, Korea, Fiji, Tonga, Britain, Chile, Peru, Ireland, and the US. In 2016, there are 50 lay missionaries with 22 long-term lay missionaries. Sean McDonough published The Vanishing Earth in 1985 and Care for the Earth in 1986, introducing a major new theme for Columban mission, where the 1982 chapter spoke of witness and dialogue from the standpoint of solidarity with the poor. The Busan Assembly in 1988 had a section on solidarity with the poor in ecological perspective. McDonough warned of climate change in 2006. The General Assembly in that year stated, "Global warming is the most serious ecological challenge facing humanity and the planet. As people of faith, we believe we have a moral obligation to act." Rufus Halley joined the Prelature of Marawi in 1980 and immersed himself in the Maranao community. As director of Our Lady of Peace High School in Malabang, where 70% of the students were Muslim, he regularly visited all their homes. Several students came from a divided Maranao clan racked by a feud for many years. Rufus gained their trust and used examples like the peace process in Northern Ireland to get both sides to ask for reconciliation. He was their honoured guest at the peace ceremony. On the 28th of August 2001, kidnappers shot him dead on the outskirts of the town. Muslims asked for his body for a day and prayed the Quran around the coffin. They joined their Christian neighbours for the wake and funeral. Connie Balindong, a Muslim teacher in the school, spoke in the church saying that Muslims called him Alongan, meaning the sun, because he radiated light to those around him.
It's amazing how the story of life unfolds. Mother Nature keeps singing songs. The sunrise and it is dawn with the colors of the rainbow. There's more to life than we know. The universe still grows strong. In the horizon there's hope. It's amazing.